Okay, Nathan.
I just want to make sure.
Golden?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, not bad. 7:01. I'd like to call the November 10th, 2021 council meeting to order. Any visitors that are with us that would like to be recognized can go ahead and state their name at this time.
Lynn Bailey's here. I don't know if it matters, I don't have anything to say, but you know what, listen.
Oh, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Joe Armand.
Stan Roth, I'm here to listen and learn, hopefully to learn about how cemetery finances fit into the overall picture of the city budget.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Lines, representing Target Management, who operates the startup apartments in the Clover.
Mark Stedman, representing Starting Place Apartments.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, do we have any additions to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to give an update on my conversation with Kathy McMorris Rogers' office and what the availability of funds through infrastructure bill might be for water.
Okay. Steven, you look like you may have had one.
Yeah, just generally some items coming out of the meeting from Public Works today that I'd like to address and make sure we get traction on.
Shall we call it housekeeping items? Or you want
Sure, there's a collection, I guess. One would be purchases and two would be work hours.
Okay.
I have Nathan's updates, but it doesn't have the section struck, which is not something that he was instructed to do.
Okay, approval of bills. You guys should have a check registered document that was sent out Monday. Yeah, it's Monday. You guys have any questions on any of that? Or payroll?
Just have one question, transaction 863. How many more payments to Casey Mong G or whatever?
Hopefully this is it.
I thought,
Yep.
yeah, it's getting near the end.
Yep.
Payments for what?
To Casey for our operator for the wastewater treatment plant. But Devin now has his license, which Casey holds. So
Good.
we no longer need that outsourced.
Two questions.
Okay?
For the Lukens and Annis, the handbook consultation, so is that a pass-through?
That portion is not. We tried to apply for an additional grant like we did last year in the beginning of this year, and there were none available.
Okay.
So that portion of the total cost is not.
And then,
I believe I'll put you on speakerphone.
862 Advocates Law Group, for the junk ordinance review, so I guess that's what we had,
Josh Grant.
the Josh Grant.
Yeah.
So do we expect any more of those, do you think?
I don't think so.
I don't think it shouldn't.
Or do we have to do it will we have to review it one more time when we get the other ones together?
Everything that's gonna be changed as he prescribed him to do.
Okay.
So it should be good to go.
Thank you.
And if he did have to, I think it wouldn't cost that much. If he had to do a brief pencil wave over it, it would involve the time.
Anything else? Anyone have anything that grabs their attention?
I move the bills be accepted as presented.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the bills. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion?
Okay, just one more question. How much toilet paper did we buy anyway?
Do you remember?
We
Cases.
bought 3 cases
So,
and toilet seat covers.
For the,
So there's a case in Public Works, there's a case here, and then there's a case up at the storage for the bathroom at the park.
How big is the case?
How many are in there?
you say about this big?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
bad enough. Yeah, there's
I
probably.
was thinking, when you spend $412 on toilet paper, you really want to get your money's worth out of it.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
2 to 3 plies.
Is that about average, what we spend on?
This is the first time I bought it,
Yeah, we had a lot left over from quite a while ago.
and I went by a previous order. So
So
it
it's not
should
a-
last us 5-6 months,
Hopefully.
provided we don't have an outbreak of something awful.
Okay.
I have a question about line 872, Lukens and Annis. How many hours of consultation did we purchase from them? Is that strictly for the handbook?
It is. I don't remember the exact number of hours that was on there.
Is that the last we'll have to consult with them on the handbook, Stephen?
We'll see tonight.
Hopefully, yes.
All this can be yours for a simple vote of yes.
3 hours.
Okay. We paid
$2.90 an hour.
$870 for 3 hours of attorney's fees?
Yep. That's why the rest of it being grants were fantastic. I'm guessing we're in the neighborhood of about
62 or?
Yeah, 6,000, 6 to 7,000 for one document.
All question.
Okay, all in favor of approving the bills, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, guys. Okay, we'll move on to meeting minutes, October 27. Anyone have any questions or additions or corrections?
I don't know that
I made a couple of small ones, but that was before it was sent out.
Okay, meeting minutes, where are we at here?
it's the one that Gary sent over, it's the
Yeah,
last.
trying to find it on the computer.
Well, that was in. Does anyone have any questions on payroll? I was in with bills, I'm sorry, I skipped it. Okay.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the October 27th, 2021 council meeting minutes. We have a second. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, guys. Okay, public hearing stuff. So, 7:11, I'd like to open the public hearing for the 2022 budget, revenue sources, any other updated questions from the council or the public. I'd like to go ahead and open that public hearing right now. Does anyone in the audience have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas? Can the city buy lottery tickets legally?
I do have one question, just generally, what is the annual budget on average? Overall?
What's the what?
It depends if
Annual
you,
budget,
depends if you count the cemetery endowment,
Yeah.
but it's been, well, one time it was 1.2 without without the cemetery endowment money, and then like 1.7 or 8 with it. That was two plus years ago.
okay.
Thank you. That the 1.2 was what was in my head for
Yeah, but
South Cemetery.
the cemetery endowment isn't money that is on the balance sheet, if you will.
Correct.
Do we have, so we gotten information from the state already then about what our projected revenues will be for the, no, Jerry shaking his head.
I contacted them, but they haven't sent it out yet.
Then what about the document for the assessor?
For what we get our share from the county, which county puts
You
out.
know, remember we have to do that,
Oh, the tax levy?
yeah, or the form for the
Yeah,
property
Yeah.
tax increase?
we'll do that next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we have it.
Do you think we'll have, well, do you think by the next meeting we'll have a preliminary budget to look at?
Yep, absolutely. Some of the stuff, and it's not, I could leave the numbers that I used last year that we had for some of the numbers that come from the state, our shares of that. I just was waiting for some of those, but if we still, they have some stuff that they still have to update for 2022. But if it's not here, it's not here, and I'll make a note of that it'll be a placeholder amount. But yes, absolutely. The big thing is I want to nail down, it sounds like we will a little bit later, with some of Steven's stuff, but nail down some of the stuff that we control, purchases and pay, some other stuff like that. I feel like although we can change a lot of items, a lot of the line items amount doesn't have to change, or doesn't change that much. So it's just what we want to do with the amounts that we put in there. Anything else? Any other questions?
Have you sent out a rough draft of the proposed budget yet?
I have not.
Is a copy available in City Hall?
I can print them, absolutely.
Okay.
I can print one at any time and leave it there, Peter. I just don't have enough of the things that I feel like we're gonna change in there yet. But it can be printed. It'll just have big letters on it that says draft.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
okay. I would like to go ahead and close the public hearing then, if we don't have any other pressing questions or issues. I will hopefully get that out plenty of time before the next meeting, so you guys have a good
We're gonna
chance.
have a public hearing at the next meeting as well then, is that the plan?
No, I mean, we can, but we don't necessarily have to.
Will there be one before adoption?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure that was
yeah.
publicly.
Yes, I think we should have another one.
I have a question, I'm sorry. With the plowing this winter, what, exactly will the residents be responsible? I know that of course our sidewalks, what about in front of our houses?
What will we plow? So we're,
Yeah, how far in will they go? Cause Scott didn't even, just how far in, or, it's like,
The road, the right of way,
pardon me?
the road itself in the right of way,
Yeah, like,
up to the sidewalks.
not the sidewalks, think.
Up to the sidewalks.
Oh, up to, or,
It depends what the weather is too, so most of the time it's just gonna be,
well, see, and I don't know how they're gonna do it this year, so, you know, they might, I just know I've been plowed in pretty good. And,
well, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. We gotta get it off the city street.
That I get, but I mean, I've been to the point where I couldn't get to my house, you know, and I just wanna make sure that's not gonna happen again. But we'll see, these guys are new, so, you know, can't really say anything until we see what they're gonna do.
So the one thing I know that's gonna depend on is gonna be if there's cars in the way. So if there's a car there, then we definitely can't plow it. If there's no car, if time and the amount of snow allows us, and obviously if the ground's not frozen, we're not gonna plow anything that's not hard surfaced. So if it's soft, the alleys and any gravel areas.
We just don't want it burned.
Oh, no, I'm not even worried about that. I'm just, you know, there was one year I couldn't, but I had been gone. You know, I had been gone and I was gone, I think, for the weekend. I came home, I couldn't get into my house. I had to park on the other side of my street. They plowed everybody else on that side, but not on this side. And I just don't want that to happen, you know. Especially if Chris is there by himself, and he was there by himself. And, yeah, I just don't want that to happen.
We will do our best. Okay, any other budget stuff? I'll go ahead and close I'm going 7 minutes, 7:18, I'll close the public hearing for 2022 budget. Next agenda item, CRF funds. I know we've chatted about it a few times, but I wanted to see if anyone had any other thoughts on what we wanted to use the money for. I'm frankly having a little bit of a hard time finding out getting really good guidance on it. I've actually attempted to contact some people and I've heard nothing as of now, but the guidance on it, as far as what I have seen and what I can find, it's not very clear. However, I'm going to keep working on that to see. I know we have some ideas of stuff that we would like to see purchased in that infrastructure category, but I want to kind of make a plan so that it can be built into the budget as much as possible for 22. So I wanted to open it to council members to see if you guys have any more thought on it, questions, comments, or concerns. Now, we talked about water meters, was a pretty big discussion. Obviously, we have some equipment that we'd like to see if we could purchase with that money, if it's allowable, if we can find out if it's allowable. You guys have any other?
What are the limitations on use of the funds? What can we use them for? Anything?
I can't give you a clear picture on that. I'm still working I was even looking tonight again to try to see if there's any more guidance. It's very broad from what I can find.
Under Section 603 in the Social Security Act, Title 6, subsection D, all the other stuff is very vague. I mean, it's weird, but it does point blank say to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure.
Right.
And that would be my recommendation that we use it for such.
But what's an investment into infrastructure? Is that equipment purchase?
Oh, water meters.
And
Water
sewer,
meters, absolutely. But
broadband.
I'm more worried about maybe some of the other purchases for equipment. Like I'm talking tools or equipment or stuff like that.
I don't think it'll fly for that. Are you aware?
Yeah, and I don't know that it will. We had talked about it at one point. What's your guys' current thought on water meter stuff? We hit that pretty hard at a previous meeting, but does anyone have any more thought on that?
Were we gonna have anybody else give a presentation or sales pitch?
We certainly could.
I don't know, the clerk had mentioned that there were some other people he might contact. Is that just, you waiting to do that, or is it?
I contacted H.D. Fowler, and I have a quote on my computer from them, but I haven't had time.
It'd be my recommendation that we do that, but also keep, I'm not for buying something that's gonna cost us every year, proprietary, software, a constant drain.
Stephen, do you mind me putting you on the spot a little bit? You did a little bit more
I looked
research.
into it. So the first thing is that, with him as the salesman, I didn't know from Adam whether whether Camstrup was a good name or not. And it appears that from everything I could see, the Camstrup does seem to be a pretty reputable name. It's kind of hard to shop around for something like the water meter because you don't find reviews on it and stuff, and kind of cities just wholesale get sold on this or that, but it seems like they have a pretty good reputation. I thought it was pretty interesting if you were at all curious of how you have a water meter without anything mechanical in it. It's pretty interesting that it just shoots two ultrasonic pings at each other, kind of like the sub movies. And depending on which way the ping gets going faster, because the water carries it faster one way or another. If the water's still, they hit each other at the same time. If the water's moving through, then one is slightly faster and one's slightly slower. There's no paddle in it, there's no hole in it, there's nothing that can, well, I shouldn't say there's nothing that can go wrong because they have a lifespan, but there's less that can mechanically fail and get clogged with debris and that kind of thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Lastly, as far as the specific point of your question, I was concerned about getting locked into a proprietary system and then what happens if they go bankrupt or if they all of a sudden start charging egregious prices or whatever for it. The good news is that as much as I generally despise European Union regulation, there is a nice point in it that the Camstrup is legally required to make their meters compatible to a standard. So if we wanted to, and I'm not saying that we should, but we could make our own system of readers, from what I can see. As long as Camstrup gives us, there's certain little IDs that they have to give us with it. So my vote for it would be contingent upon them giving us the keys to the system, so to speak. But past that, the question is, unless you want to invest in reading your own system, we would have some type of a monthly subscription to their system of doing it. Now, the one where you drive around would be the cheapest one, as opposed to the fixed hardware thing that they would put on the tower and stuff. I think we need to get an exact quote on how much that would be per month to have such a system, and then weigh that against what benefits there would be in terms of not having to go look at every meter and the automated flow into bias. I mean, it could well be worth the money, but at least should the value proposition fall out from that, we would theoretically be able to continue on.
Okay.
So,
Does anyone have a argument against water meters in general? Regardless of how we update, if it's even, I know Justin spoke about having money already in the budget for the mechanical meters, but does anyone have any, are they proposed to using money for water meters in general?
The CRF funds?
Yeah.
The one thing I would be careful, like he even said too, the sales guy, about if you do them all at once, you're kind of stuck if they all go down.
Same cycle.
So if there's I think the CRF has 2 years, so maybe you do.
Yeah, I was just reading some stuff. It's actually further out now. I was giving you guys at the end of 23 had to be expended, but it's even further out than that.
So maybe there's 2 years is not that much difference from each other, but if we're able to do some of it in say next year, year one, and then in 2024, and that's 3 years in between, or 2
Right.
years. But if we have that money, in my opinion, if we had to use it or lose it, and we could just replace the entire water meters at once with that, I would say, let's do it and then start budgeting for replacement if that was a scenario. But I think it's a great anything anything will probably be better than what we have
Yeah.
right now.
And I think I've definitely been in favor of it just because that's, obviously there's been a lot of time involved in the reading the meters, put them into the computer. And then second of all, it's a revenue source. So not that we want to charge people more money, but we want to be charging what should be charged, what's actually being used.
Do we have a ballpark count or an accurate count?
Of how many?
are?
Two.
We have 263 bills that go out every month. So
And I'm sure. Good.
that's, I would imagine, about how many we need.
Some of those are garbage though only, right? Some of those are garbage only.
There are a few. Some
Yeah.
of the
I
bills.
thought I heard the number 240 something when we were talking about meters, like when the guy was here with the presentation.
Yeah.
Could about 20 of those be garbage only?
Some are garbage only, some are on a well. But
Say it's plus or minus 250.
And I'd say, in my opinion, that there are probably still places that should need meters installed. Even our own properties. So like we got one at the cemetery, but that's part of keeping track of
Right.
your water usage.
And
So-
some that have been shut off, and then some that potentially, so we probably need just a few on hand too.
Yeah. But 250 would be a good number.
Well, I think we found out too that the cost is a lot different than what we were, because we budgeted before. Well, I think we budgeted 10%, so we were trying to do 19 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Should have been 190, but we thought they were. I thought with.
At 9,500 a year, $9,500 a year.
500, but that was $500 each times 19. I bet.
Where do we buy our new water meters currently? From whom?
I believe they come from H.D. Fowler or there's another place in Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the name of the other company.
I would be okay doing about somewhere between a third and half for our first purchase, probably more towards a third. Starting with the oldest meters and the ones that are in homes.
We can, if we need another meeting to talk more about the specifics to get this nailed down, I think it's going to take some time to do that, but I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page and didn't have a huge red flag saying, no, I don't want to do that.
I would be happy enough to hear from another presentation.
Okay.
Make sure that,
Different company.
yeah.
See what's out there.
Okay.
Smart meter.
Or just water meters in general.
Well, because the ones we get right now, from like Fowler, those are the ones we have to install, and then we have to hand read.
I guess my reservation with it is somewhat similar to David's in that I think that there's a point where certainly the system, if it works well, can be worth its monthly cost, so I'm not inherently opposed to it. But I also worked in contracting software long enough to know that things are generally never work as well as they're sold by the salesman. So, yes, smart meters, I guess, but I would be interested in hearing from dumb meter salesmen, whatever the alternative of the opposite of smart meter is.
Traditional.
Not smart.
Not smart.
The other thing that I'd like to hear when we get to that point is another maybe municipality. Yeah, Reardon's going through the process. Somebody closer the better.
Reardon's going to Camstrut.
I don't know if it's that.
I'm not sure if it's Camstrut, but they just recently started updating all their meters.
I think that
I think it
gentleman
was
said-
Camstrut.
Okay. It
So
would be probably good to talk to a town that's done it a year or two back.
He said Fairfield too, I think was another one.
Yeah.
yeah.
I can look into trying to make some contacts, as long as if you can give me his information so I can start with him of which cities to pursue.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mid-County Seniors Agreement. So you guys should have got a updated and corrected, agreement. We talked about it 2 times ago when I was absent, and then last time as well.
I'll move to approve. I read through it. There's a few little typos left, but in general, I think they addressed the concerns. The first paragraph no longer has the weird
Yeah,
references. Why the personal use clause is called personal use, I don't know, but the meat of that clause I have no problem with. And generally, I would thank Billy for being attentive to the revisions that the council wanted. And then also the inventory at the end, I thought was a fairly attentive inventory as well.
The only question I had on the inventory was, well, I guess you need a second first, right?
we have a second to, Stephen's motion to approve the Mid-County Seniors, agreement.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question. So on the last page of the inventory, it says 36 folding chairs and 8 folding tables. I just want to make sure that, I guess I want to clarify, because if it's these chairs, these are the Lions Club chairs.
They physically counted them,
But these chairs here,
they're marked senior, and
No,
they're in that small
okay,
closet in
They're
there.
metal ones, I think, right? All metal.
it didn't say, it said folding.
Yeah. Because the Lions Club, I think, bought, I'm pretty sure we bought more than 36.
yeah.
Was this what was sitting out here, so, okay. Thank you.
Is this something that's gonna be renewed yearly or until the parties get set up?
I think open-ended for as far as time until one party chooses to end it.
Do we wanna leave it that way, or we just wanna do it not automatic, but just a yearly renewal?
You can, it's one more thing to remember every year.
The funding and period and termination clause would be the one you'd be interested in on page 4.
Yes.
Has anybody, question if I may, has anybody resolved the apparent discrepancy between what Billy Heron has written in her November 5th letter and the Mid-County Seniors? It was left up in the air who owns the 2 refrigerators.
No, she tried to make contact with OCTN and has heard nothing. So she says as of now, they are
Assuming that it's
Assumed to be
yes,
our
assuming
property.
yes,
So the ones with padlocks are theirs
yeah.
in there?
A little bit different on the serial numbers, and then trying to contact them just to see if they wanted them to try. She was trying to get those units back to OCTN and hasn't had any contact. So
I'm not sure who purchased them. Might be worthwhile to contact Dave Michelson, who was involved in the acquisition of those.
I would certainly guess it would be somebody with OCTN.
It wasn't the city, so it's not,
Yeah.
not our, yeah.
The only other question I would have is, paragraph 7, when it says under waste, with the last sentence, the cost of repairs or replacement cost. It says, well, further than that, each party to this agreement shall be responsible for maintenance of its own equipment and shall bear the cost of any repairs or replacement unless the other party was using the equipment at the time of the breakage, in which case the party shall bear the cost of repairs or replacement cost of similar age and condition. Can we strike of similar age and condition? Or do we need to? Because these go out by another one from I mean, if you have to replace it, you have to replace it no matter what.
so if the furnace goes out while they're using it, they have to replace the furnace?
Well, that's what it's saying.
No,
I'm saying, or do you want, I mean, I'm trying to grasp what the intent of that is really, it's in itself entirely.
I'm guessing that is more to along the lines of
I'm guessing like
similar style.
a blender or refrigerator or something on equipment, so.
You can't go out and replace it with a $4,000 refrigerator if your $200 one broke. That's probably where they're at with it.
Specifically if the other party broke it. Right?
Yeah.
So the Lions Club comes in for the charter night stuff and they damage a device owned by Mid County Seniors. It would be incumbent upon the city to replace that to Mid County Seniors, and the city therefore to extract any compensation from the Lions Club for that.
It's really the Mid County Seniors stuff shouldn't be used by anyone else. I mean, theoretically.
Theoretically, but there can also just be incidental damages.
Yeah.
We're just, what I'm looking at is that they just bring in somebody's old garbage, you know, well, that one looks like crud, and go out on the street, here, there you go. Or vice versa, you know? Or do we just forget about it?
Well, but it's a similar age and condition. It's saying that you can't replace it with something that looks like trash. Because it would fail the condition part of it, similar condition.
Well, that's a subjective. You look at those.
Well, to Stephen's previous point, you make these agreements when you're friends, so if there's something wrong, but in my recollection, we haven't really had any issues.
Prior.
So I don't have an issue, but to Stephen's prior point at the last meeting is, if it's something we wanna hammer out, but I don't.
It hasn't been an issue in the past, is what you're saying.
I haven't ran into
My
any
time,
issues.
the time that I've been here with it involved.
Question, if I may. How long have we rented to the seniors at $75 a month?
Well, for the Mid County Seniors since inception and to OCTN before I was on board, as far as I know.
Have we ever figured out how much it costs the city to rent it out to them?
As far as
Hot water, heat, light?
not to my knowledge, no.
But it was recognized, I remember at a different time, it was recognized that the city may not recoup its 100% costs, but they were willing to do it because it was for the benefit of the city,
Residents.
for the residents. So whether or not for the other times, when we charge $75 a use, same with the Lions Club. The Lions Club and the OCTN had subsidized rates, knowing the services they were providing for our citizens.
What do the Lions pay monthly?
Same. I
75?
believe, Stephen, what was it a year?
It's
Six?
$600 a year, I believe.
So $50 a month.
But
They
the
don't-
Lions use the large hall, don't they?
Use everything.
Which is this and
This is
Kitchen.
the kitchen. We don't use the small room.
And we're granting the Mid County Seniors to use this as well, this area,
It's in the agreement.
I think.
they could if they wanted,
But
but
they
typically it's the
don't, yeah.
little room and the kitchen.
Oh, maybe it's not. Well, it says community center, small dining room, kitchen, storage, and restrooms. So if this is the community center, then yes. Otherwise, I don't know what the community center is.
Well, the one document I seen, those were checked off, like check
Right.
confirmed. This document I'm looking at now doesn't have those check marks. Is that the intention of council to grant it? All that?
I don't think it makes too much difference to us one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't think they use this room anyway.
What would it be for the normal or citizen come off the street, want to rent the hall?
$75, I think, isn't it? 40 for the little and
Per
70
instance, though.
Yeah, $75 a use for the big hall and kitchen, or $40, I think, for the kitchen and the little room.
And the frequency is different, right? Because the Lions Club are using it twice a month, and Mid-County Seniors are using it, what is it, 3 times a week?
Yeah, and Lions Club doesn't meet in the summer.
Twice a week.
Twice a week.
Yeah, but, so Peter, to your other question though, it is, I don't know that we ever, I think in prior times, we didn't know the exact cost to the city, but it was felt that the city was okay subsidizing the senior meals, recognizing the benefit. It was,
I remember that discussion. I think Paul Gilliland was senior, or was mayor when we discussed
That's
it.
per month, yeah.
well, I remember when Dylan was the mayor too, we discussed it, because that's when we changed the whole rates for individual uses.
Yep.
But, so I'm sure it's probably been discussed,
Several times.
yeah, every term, you know,
Yeah.
every time somebody's,
Large meeting room in the kitchen is 70 is
Oh,
for one-time use,
in 40.
and 40 for the smaller.
And that was, went into place when Dylan was the,
Well, that's quite a difference, $75 per month versus 75 per instance,
yeah.
yeah. To follow up on your question, Mr. Davenport,
Yeah.
it was,
But again, then the rest of it was the $70 per instance is helping cover some of the cost for the senior meals too. It's just,
I raised the question because I question the legality of providing services at less than what it's costing the cities. May not be legal to subsidize a
be discounted, a discount,
discount, yeah.
yeah.
Well, we provide the garbage service for less than it costs to do it, so if we open up that can of worms, I don't know what anyone will like where it ends.
Yeah.
Call the question.
Okay, where were we at? Do we have a motion?
In
in a
second.
And a
second.
second, we're on discussion, okay?
What's the motion again? That the proposed agreement be accepted?
Correct. All in favor of approving the agreement between the Mid-County Seniors and the City of Harrington for the Memorial Hall usage, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, guys. Okay, you guys all received a emailed copy of the handbook that has been ongoing for quite some time. Let's dive into it. I guess we have any questions or comments, what we see. David and Steven and myself worked on this. What have we been working on this since last November?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Somewhere in there. We received some grants last year and some more this year to pay the attorney to work with us on this. We got their final revision back and still had a few small changes, and I made those changes and sent the document out. Steven had some stuff that he wasn't 100%, or that I guess all of us weren't 100% completely happy with, but he made mention of maybe tacking it again next year sometime when grants are, if grant funding is available and if we need it, or if it's just stuff that we can change as a city. I'll just remind you guys that the quote current handbook that we're under is less than great. So with that being said, this I feel is strides ahead of where we are now.
Which one?
Which handbook?
Yeah.
Which current hand? That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
This is one document, start to finish, front to back, and at least if we did need to change something in the future, we could definitely do that. But this then will relieve all of the stacks of parts of handbooks that we have currently.
So I'd like to make a motion, and we'll have discussion, I'm sure, that I would move that we approve the handbook as presented with one change, that in chapter 8, section 11 on safety, section E would be struck entirely. So first let me speak quickly to the handbook itself and then to the change.
Can you state chapter 8?
Chapter 8, section 11, safety, subsection E, which is the section that you and I discussed, Justin. So first of all, in the handbook itself, as was just discussed, currently we have debatably 3 different versions of a handbook. It's not a very tenable situation or appropriate for us as an employer or a city to be in that situation. Second of all, there are still problems with this handbook. There are numerous typos and things that still need to be adjusted from a formatting perspective, as well as some ongoing discussions about some of the exact methodology prescribed in some instances. But in general, I feel, as Nathan said, that it is a vast improvement, especially to have one solitary document to be able to say, well, what is the handbook and have you read it? I don't know if anyone of us could probably answer yes to that unless we've read all 3 versions of it and know which one is the one that we would claim is the handbook. So at least coming out of this, we could know what our handbook is and what is right with it and what is wrong with it. And it has also had some significant improvements to address some issues that we've gone through in the last 2 years, specifically regarding the way employees leave employment and separate from employment with the city, and what type of compensation is due at that time. There were some very fuzzy questions, there, and we've worked very hard to try and clean that up and improve in areas that were brought to our attention as lacking. So I'll be first in line to propose that we get another round of revisions on this probably next year after we do the budget season, because I think there are things I still want to improve with it. So it's not a perfect document that I could say I full-throatedly endorse for its own sake, but contextually it is an appropriate improvement in my opinion. Lastly then, with it, in terms of striking that section, at the handbook workshop there was questions regarding section E's reference to the possession of firearms by city employees. As far as we are aware, the handbook does not address the issue whatsoever, which is also to call out.
The existing.
Yes, the revisions that we were able to find of it do not address the issue one way or another, which is also to say that they do not restrict the situation. Technically, even though some may find section E to be more permissive than their tastes, being that there is some restrictions mentioned in E, it is inherently a little bit more restrictive than saying nothing. There are some concerns about the potential impacts for insurance liability with what is said in section E. So my proposed striking of the section is to say, since technically having no mention to it is more permissive, and it does not change our insurance liability picture, we will find better agreement by not having that section in at this time. And if we want to add section E back in or some variant to it in future revisions, we can do that then. But I would hate to see this section hold things up when it is technically more restrictive than our current situation. So, that's it.
Well said.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay. Discussion.
The question, the motion addressed the section to be deleted. Did he say B as in Bravo?
E.
E as in Edward.
What chapter is that?
This is chapter 8, and then section 11, safety. And section E, I guess I can read it for the benefit if people are still looking to find it. But section E states as follows: employee safety depends on the safety consciousness of everyone. In order to facilitate a safe work environment, employees may not bring firearms to the workplace. The only exceptions to this rule are: 1, law enforcement positions for which the job requires possession of firearms, and 2, non-law enforcement city employees who have a valid permit to carry concealed firearms, provided said employees do so in a safe and responsible manner at all times. As to non-law enforcement employees, the mayor shall have the authority to limit or prevent any such employee from carrying firearms in connection with their city employment if the mayor, in their discretion, determines the employee has acted unsafely or irresponsibly. An employee whom the mayor has prevented from carrying a firearm for which they have a valid permit may appeal the mayor's decision to the city council within 14 days of the mayor's decision. Again, the proposal is to strike that section entirely.
And that was included in the motion.
Yes.
Did you find that?
No.
Are we still open for discussion there?
Yep.
Okay. I would point out something that I remembered from the past, now that we're discussing this. The city employee, particularly the dog catcher, has carried a firearm from time to time as it was necessary. In my memory, they've had to use them to dispatch animals at least twice within the city limits. So I don't know, I can't hear everything that's going on right now, but I don't know if that became discussion right now or not.
The proposed striking of that section, Levi, would mean that this document does not address firearms whatsoever, as the current handbook variations do not address firearms. So therefore, there would be no policy or restriction change with this handbook.
We would have a paragraph that would not have a paragraph that was for or against it. It just wouldn't be included in the document.
That sounds like a lovely idea.
You guys see any other major points? I mean, you guys have went through it a lot. Justin, did you have any?
Did you find it?
I found it.
Okay.
No, I just want to say thank you to your committee that worked so hard on it with Kelly, the attorney, and all those guys. And like Stephen said, it's probably not perfect, but it's better than what we have existing, given all the variations and versions.
What we can guess that we have as a current.
Try to take all the ambiguities out of it.
Yeah.
It's an impressive document. My compliments to the committee. How much, I do have a question. How much of this text in this proposed version is new verbiage? Whole thing?
No.
Probably 75% technically, and then maybe 25% of it is technically new, but highly guided by what they found in our existing documents.
So they gave them all of our existing stuff that we had, and this is what the attorney put together.
The thing that made it difficult is ideally when you're doing something like this, it would be nice to have a differential to say, this is our current handbook, this is the new one, these are the things we added, these are the things we struck. And then we could go through bit by bit and say, why do we do this, why do we do this? Well, because our handbooks were so outdated, there was a lot of issues that they did not address whatsoever, and then there was a question as to which one would be the one. They just took kind of their cookie cutter, or at least this is our theory of it, or maybe there's been official indications of this, but they took their kind of template for a city agreement and then took what they found in our handbooks and applied it to their template. So most of this is very new language, even if some of the spirit of it was guided by what we had already done.
And one of the big things that we gained out of having this lawyer look at it too was the legality stuff. To update any RCW sightings, or I mean anything to deal with that where we may have had something in our previous handbook that we said, oh, we want to keep that, maybe just change the language. Well, that could have been outdated. What that was revision was from like 2001 or something. So that stuff that has changed, they know those laws and RCWs, and then can put that into this new one. So that's why the attorney was initially introduced to this in the first place.
Thank you.
It's for the legality parts of it.
But I think too, because this came up at the last meeting and the one before, that section E was something we added, or that was added by the committee. And that's when the Kelly said he advised us to check with our attorney or with our insurance, because he didn't.
Well, section E, you can check me, David. I think section E came from the attorney. We changed it,
Yeah.
and he didn't like the way we changed it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. He
he was insistent that we restrict firearms from our employees whatsoever.
And I see, in E, it doesn't mention dangerous weapons like some other verbiage had said. So, I think we're on the right path, just to erase it for right now, proceed.
Yeah,
Call question?
okay. All in favor of approving the new handbook with, Stevens, with striking, subsection E of safety in chapter 8? Signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, guys. Woo-hoo! Yeah, that's a big one. That's been a long process.
What is that, 50 hours, 50 hours?
Yeah.
At least $20,000 what he charged.
Okay, thank you, guys.
No, I can't believe that. It's not
Okay, additions. Peter, you had a conversation with,
At
Kathy.
the last meeting, I was tasked with contacting Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rogers' office to see what effect or what the relationship might be between our need for a new upgraded water system and the bill that just passed Congress, the infrastructure bill. And just tonight, I talked to one of her staff members, and he recommends that we just apply for grants as we always have. My interest was how much of the money would filter down to the city level, and he can't say, he doesn't know. But
I don't feel so bad for not being able to answer it then.
yeah, I'd recommend we just contact Steve Marsh and see what they know.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And yes, I can only hope that we can get on a track with somebody and or ourselves for, obviously we have our engineers for grants and apply for as many grants as we can.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Steven, you're up.
So two things, we did have at 4:30 today, the public workshop for the public works employees at the city shop, 4:30, which as a reminder is open to anyone and everyone, 4:30 on the days of the city council meetings. They asked that for three things, when we talked about their wish list and prioritization of things, that one, that they would get a new snake in order to help clean clogs from our sewer system. The one that they have now is inadequate. They are going to get us an estimate on what they would propose for that, and then we can action that. Second of all, we have what I would probably call a disturbing lack of PPE available for our employees. So there was some generous offers of donations from some of those in attendance. And then past that also, there was generally an approval from Nathan to say that the PPE necessary could be obtained with a few exceptions of things that will be on them. But generally, there's most of that, they have the go forward approval to buy currently. And then thirdly, the acquiring of a new spray tank and spray equipment for the spring. I guess because before the tank that we had was quite small, and Scotty was towing it behind his own personal lawnmower, which of course is no longer available to the city, plus it was slow. So there are some things that need to be wired, and Joe offered to help with some wiring to pull a pump off of the alternator of the 1 ton. So there will likely be some purchases related to that, but those were three items that they were excited about in the near term. And longer term with it, it would seem that from what they just demonstrated to us, that the sweeper is quite an interesting mess, that I would say that we probably should prioritize the budgeting to get something in the long run on that, because that sweeper is highly disturbing. It's almost shocking that our employees are not getting electrocuted in it, given what's going on. Live wires, shocks, and puddles of water that they're sitting in while they operate it. So, and that is not an exaggeration. So that was the hardware stuff. Second of all, and this can largely be taken offline, but just to say that they do need backdating of the pay for the certifications. They said that while they have it now and going forward, there's a backdating that needs to be taken care of. Also, pursuant to the conversation that we had last time in this meeting about them having the option to take their health care money, Joe, as a future councilman, and Peter was there at the time, both of them affirmed that that is what they wish to do. So I would expect that by the time we meet next time, they will be able to inform us that they have been paid that money.
They have already.
Okay.
The back pay or
the health back pay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And then the last point to bring up, and I kind of expect that this may well be a vote that goes down in flames given the sentiment that happened last time, but I think I'd like to put it on the record, is I would like a vote on whether the public works employees are allowed to work 4/10s or 5/8s.
Through the winter?
All year round. They were expressing the personal impact on them in addition to the additional drive time that it constitutes for them and the amount of money in transit that it constitutes for them. They were bringing up the points of how even though there is only one person on Mondays and Fridays, the overall hours of coverage are extended because every single day has 10 hours of coverage in it instead of 8. So there is a trade-off there, not a clear degradation. Whether a person likes that trade-off or not is another matter. Including also just one of them expressing that it impacts their ability to spend time with their kids on the weekends. And I got the impression that he said they had to drive down to Tri-Cities and pick them up, so I'm guessing it's a visit, and not visitation, but
Shared custody.
Shared custody, thank you. Are some of these problems inherently the city's? No, but when we can accommodate our employees without cost with it, or at least I know some of you debate that in terms of the impact, but so it's fine. In this vote, I could stand alone, that's fine, I would just like it put to a vote.
I'd like to interject here. I'm for that, I see both sides, but I'd do it as a trial basis this year, only to see how it impacts the city. And just where,
Yeah.
if
And
it's
they said
negatively or if, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. It's just if it's gonna work or not. Because if it's gonna impact the city and the residents here, I would say no. But if we can get by, and there's no, that's why a trial period, I think, is due here, in order. I would be for that.
Go ahead, Joe.
Another point that was brought up is they have had conversations about the issue of snow and how to adjust, in anticipation, watching the weather, knowing what's coming, to make those adjustments so that they are largely available when the town needs them the most.
Sure.
Good point, Joe. Yes, they said they would be happy to plow through the night with it and take a different day off if necessary, because they said specifically, we're not really looking to milk the overtime because frankly, I'd rather be at home with my family than have the overtime hours. So if I take a different day off and plow through the night, I'd rather do that and have that day free so that I can have the benefits of that. So whether you like that accommodation or not, regardless, I was impressed by the fact that they already were mindful of how to try and keep the city's best interests at heart and to try and make sure that we have as little impact upon the populace as possible.
And I'm okay with that. Not that I'm a voting member anyways, but I'm okay with that. One, trial year, see if it works, see if it doesn't work through this winter. That's easy being said that I won't be here next winter, but second of all, I just want to remind the council, public, Devin and Derek as well, that ultimately is the decision of the mayor. So should that mayor decide differently next year or in 6 years, I just want to make sure that the council and everyone involved is aware of that.
I would agree.
So I would say to that, I think the council doesn't need to, well, you can't make a vote tonight because it wasn't on the agenda. It's an action item. So, but besides that point, I think the council can voice their concerns to this mayor or the future mayor or any future mayor. But I think the council doesn't want to get that deep in the weeds on a policy thing. That's the mayor's decision. The mayor has the right, and the mayor is gonna work with those people to know what's best for the city on a more regular basis than the council, and we could hamstring, and it can have unintended consequences. So I would be opposed to
I think
restrict that.
I would disagree. Well, I guess it depends on what you consider an office, because the handbook says that the hours of operation for offices will be set by ordinance. And there is only one city hall office, but in previous discussions as to what is considered an office, there have been those who have voiced their concerns that the public works is considered an office in terms of the services that are provided to the city. So if it is set by ordinances and ordinances are approved by the council, I would say that it is at least debatable as to whether the council has a role in that.
Well, what do you guys
I
think in
would
general?
second
David,
that.
you voiced your opinion. Stephen, Peter, Levi, Justin, do you guys have a kind of for or against continuing 410s through winter?
My recommendation would be on a trial basis, that way, see what happens.
Okay.
If,
I think we should do everything in our power to accommodate our two workers, so long as it doesn't adversely affect the business of the city.
in my opinion, you have more than 2 employees. So any change you have to make or decide to make should affect every employee. It should not just isolate 2 employees who have chosen not to live in town and who have chosen to drive to Tri-Cities every weekend. That's a personal choice, where they live and the inconvenient commute. That has nothing to do with the operation of the city. So any policy change needs to be across the board for every employee.
The difference, Jerry, would be that you do not have a secondary employee that has your same job qualifications. And as soon as you would have that, I would endorse your ability to act the same.
But concessions have to go to every employee. You cannot
And if you
isolate.
are in a similar situation, you would get the same concession in my book.
Well, then it needs to be in a policy that includes all employees.
I'm not sure it has to apply to all employees. You have a different
Job
assignment.
It's favoritism.
The handbook historically and in the current one has provisions that are specific to that which is the public-facing aspect of it.
Again, I think that it should reside with the mayor. And the mayor's gonna have the best interest, because these things are gonna change. There's gonna be days that that 410s might work, and that's not gonna be every day. And there might be days that we need to be here, and the mayor is the person that typically directly manages or oversees what the city employees are doing, whether that's the clerk or the public works employees.
But the council sets the policies, the mayor implements them. is what-
Well, to Justin's point, I believe he's right that we can't take a vote on it out of an addition to the agenda. So it probably becomes a moot point for the duration of this meeting.
Okay.
It's
Sounds
just
like
a
I have some work to
recommendation.
do on it then. So I think just for clarification, if I understand it correctly, the hours of operation of the city of Harrington are set by ordinance, which is voted on by council. The mayor has a discretion to change or differentiate hours as needed. I don't know if that's on a permanent status, permanent, like if I could just change them without voting on them or rewriting an ordinance, amending an
Well, and the
ordinance.
difference is that this action, should it be allowed, extends the service hours of the Public Works Department.
Yeah.
Because every day has an open 10 hours in it, as opposed to some other situations with cleaning or the clerk office. There's no way to change the individual's hours without changing the office hours, unless we were to get a secondary clerk employee.
The other thing that we talked about last time about this too was we don't have the facilities to where 10 hours right now is gonna be not in daylight. So for those people to be here working for 10 hours, what are they gonna do when there's nothing to plow and they can't fix something because they don't have, I mean, so I don't know, I'm against it. I think especially, it might work in the summer like the county, but I think in the winter, but I would say, I would leave it at that. If the mayor thinks it's a good decision for that situation, or for that employee, or it's an accommodation, or it's temporary, I mean, I wanna stay out of it.
And I agree with Justin as well. I mean, that's why I say maybe just a trial. For clarification, is it both of them working the same schedule?
No.
Offset.
No. Okay, well, I will put some time and effort into that, and then just as far as whether council can or needs to vote or doesn't, or just a follow-up to what was done, what was decided on. Okay. Public comment.
Finally.
We're doing good, actually.
Yeah,
It's only
hour and 13.
8:13. That's pretty
These
fast.
usually go
for
2.5 hours.
the cold, they have to move around because it's so cold.
Yeah. Yeah,
Starting
it's a
place-
catch-22. You either turn the heater on, you can't hear, or it's cold and you can hear. So.
Am I hearing any public comment?
Yes.
Well, I didn't know if we had other individuals that wanted to make.
Whoever starts first.
Okay, we'll start. I'm Mark Stedman, and I'm with Mike Wines. We're from the Targeted Management LLC, which runs the Starting Place Apartments. And so we have a presentation to give you. First of all, maybe not everybody knows about the former Landmark Apartments, but they were run by Lincoln County Housing Coalition at one time, but it was managed by Spokane Housing Ventures. And over time, they could not make the payments. That is, Spokane Housing Ventures could not make the payments on that building. And so basically what they did was they walked away, gave it back to USDA in Wenatchee. So it sat vacant for 2 years. And before that happened, I would say that the majority of Harrington and the Harrington community did not like what was going on at the Landmark Apartments. Sheriff's Department there quite a bit, just some things going on in the community. So it sat vacant, and through a process that the previous or former owners, Lincoln County Housing Coalition, actually got the building back, and through their articles of operation in section 7 said that if they were going to disband, they had to give it to a 501(c)(3). So after 3 weeks of advertising, 501(c)(3)s could actually ask for that building if you had the economic ability to take care of all of the back issues with the city and with the different utilities. So Harrington Community Church received the building, and at this time the church has probably put in about $75,000 of renovation monies. And some of that monies was through low-income house renovation through the county. So I would say close to half of that money was from the county's funds. It is actually a low-income housing. We have had an individual there who gave forward a lot of help to the county. And that individual was not charged any rent for 4 years. And we presently have another 2 individuals that are not paying the full rent. And we have 3 actual units that are not being rented right now. The church has decided that when we started that these apartments would be for priority for veterans. And so if you had 10 people on the list, the veterans would go to the top. So that's kind of a background of where we are now in the whole process of renting out and providing homes for people in Harrington and the county. So we have a proposal for you regarding utilities. And I'm going to let Mike address that.
I was talking to the clerk, Jerry, about, we're trying to figure out if we could save some money. And evidently that issue came up here in the council meeting. And it was, if I have the numbers right, it came out to that, well, gosh, they're not paying what they should be paying. They ought to be paying for every unit, whether they're rented or not. And that came out to, if we added, just divided by 8, that came out to $120 more a unit that we'd have to charge just to cover that cost. Right now, we're charging, we just jumped the rent $50 because we were told by the fellows, the accountant for us that does our books, that the B&O tax was going up significantly and we needed to raise the rent. So we did. Hated to do it because, like I said, some of these people are kind of on the bubble because it's low-income housing. But we did it and notified them that it would happen in the first of the year. And then I get talking to the county clerk and evidently, or the city clerk, evidently in one of these, the last meeting, it came up that we weren't paying enough. And I don't, wow. $120 for every unit, whether they're rented or not, we can't do it. We just can't do it. The money isn't there. We can't charge, even if we absorb $20 of that a month and said $100 more a month and add it on there too. Where right now we're at the beginning of the year, we're at $450 and $500. That's for a bedroom unit or a studio unit, the difference in price. Then we'd be talking about $500 and $550 at least if we added just $50. That'd be over $600. And talking to Mark, who's well aware of what they rent stuff in Davenport, that puts us right in the same market as Davenport. And anybody that's looking for a room isn't going to go here because there's not the services they have in Davenport, especially for people that are limited mobility because they don't have the money to pay for a car or whatever, and they can walk to it. So we're kind of up against a hard spot here with the city, and we're kind of just looking for some help, some mitigation, something to work with us.
So, I don't know that necessarily came up in a meeting. Maybe it did. Initially, that came up with we're going through trying to figure out and get out all of our utilities squared away. Yep. Are we charging correctly? Are the meters reading correctly? And Justin can help me on the ERU stuff for the sewer. Water, as far as I can see, and what's written in our ordinances and what's in, everybody here really is fairly new. I mean, Peter's been with the council for a while, but it's trying to know exactly what needs to be charged to what buildings, what houses, and how. And so that's where it originally came up, at least the conversation between Jerry and I. As far as the sewer is the one that got me. So obviously we're going through a lot of stuff right now with the sewer plant in general, but that's where the question came up of how many units are in the building, same as, let's say, the school or any other larger building. Justin, I was kind of picking on you. It's something to do with the ERUs and how many. Could you explain that if you remember? It's even though there's only one connection, it depends on how many.
Yeah, the ERU is equivalent residential unit.
Yeah.
And so what I know is like, the school might have 20 or something.
Yeah, I don't remember what
So-
it is.
You just have, and I think part of our loans and stuff too are based on those ERUs. There's a calculation for
Sure.
it, so maybe if it, if it's, is there 8 total units over there?
Yes,
So maybe there's, 4 bedrooms and then 4 studios, so
right.
that's probably an equivalent, maybe it's not eight ERUs, but instead it's 4, I don't know.
4, okay.
I don't know what the number is, but I'm just saying,
Right.
so there's a calculation to determine that,
Mhm.
and that's what we have to,
Okay.
Is that based on square feet then, or?
It's based on
Per unit.
facilities, I
I
believe.
think it's the
The-
toilets or
Yeah,
Yeah.
things like that.
bathrooms.
Connection.
So are the Bly apartments on the same rate that or has that been changed also? I'm just wondering if,
Well, it came up before, and I don't believe
It
it's,
should be it should be in the same boat, it should be calculated.
right, okay,
the challenge came up before, was we have some, I think, 1-bedroom houses here.
okay,
And the 1-bedroom house got charged the same as a 4-bedroom or a 6-bedroom house.
okay,
But that was 1 ERU for the house, and that was 1 ERU for the 6-bedroom house that's a regular,
Sure.
it's not
yeah,
a adult family home or, things like that. So that's come up before in
Yeah.
conversation, because there are people who say, well, I have a 1-bedroom, I get charged, which
the
is,
same amount as a 4-bedroom or
which goes-
8-bedroom, yeah,
which goes to the meter, which Stevens talked about, the water rates and stuff as well,
sure,
but the only thing I would be able to say is, that's how it's always been since I've been here, so I don't know that it's right or
And
wrong.
that's kind of thank you, that's what I was grasping at, is that calculation. So I guess the goal was to get all of that correct. For you guys, for the Bly Apartments, for the school, for our
Golf course, I
hotel
think-
when it's done,
I think the golf course
Sure.
too.
golf course, is to get what should we be charging? Because I'm not
So-
100% confident that all the properties in town are correct.
that's
Are,
true.
are we obligated to charge for 8 units when there's only one connection going into the sewer system?
For the sewer with the ERU, I think, yes. I don't know that for sure, that's where we're still trying.
So
That's where this
I
talk came
listened
up.
to what you were saying about the calculation, but what I missed out of that is if that's what we're doing to calculate it now, or if that's what we're legally obligated to do.
It should be both.
Yeah, I think we don't make the calculation up, I think there's a formula that they give you, and you apply it to that, because the school has this, I think the school has, that's why our numbers are higher, I mean, Jerry talked about the bills earlier too, but there's actual buildings, and then there's,
Oh, sure.
and that's where the ERU comes in for the
Square footage.
or the
probably,
a connection like a hotel versus,
yeah.
a hotel's gonna have, they don't,
Right.
I mean, say 10 rooms, but should those get 10, to your same point, should it has one connection?
Right.
They don't break it down, single family, multifamily dwelling, all that. And where are these, this paper or ERUs or this magic
So is there,
document? Where do you get that, or where do you look into that?
It'd be
I've only
through-
seen it when we've dealt with sending well, I think it's with our loan document stuff, but also every year we have to fill out paperwork and send it to the Department of Health for our water and Department of
Ecology.
Ecology.
Yeah.
And so there's calculations there, and you talk about any new permits and things, so it's, that's only where I've seen it. I don't know where it's housed, but I've seen the documents that talk about the ERUs, and I've seen,
Are we mandated to follow that?
I don't know that.
that I don't know either. But there are some mandates in terms of being able, so to your other point, to another point about the auditors, so we've gotten nailed and criticized and censured by the state auditors in the past over questioning how we've charged people.
yeah.
So at one point, there was a senior rate, that was based on the county. We based it on the assessor, or we
Sure.
worked with and that I know I think that has since, there might be a few grandfathered people that are like that, but that hasn't been in place since I was on the council or the mayor. But the auditors would ask us, why do we have these different things?
Sure.
Because, is it fair to David, as a taxpayer, one taxpayer to get to subsidize the other one?
Right.
So we've been, like I said, critiqued on that in the past, but I don't know if that was necessarily on how we calculated our ERUs or
Okay.
anything like that. But there is a lot of our grants that we received or have applied for in the past on our sewer, those are based on like you have to figure out like what our income is gonna be based on an ERU. So to today, I think that's almost probably mandated.
Yeah.
By default, you have to use that, but,
So to answer your guys' question, I mean, I think at the time that we can go over all this, I think we can talk about, obviously you guys, or anyone that has a question, say the Buy Apartments or any other entity like that. But the main conversation and goal of that was to make sure that everything's square.
Yeah. It's just that I understand from Jerry that there is a regulation or something out there about low-income housing that you're required to have so much of it in a.
And that could be, I don't know that well enough to say yes or
I
no.
don't know how that,
Yeah.
impacts what we're talking about, but I was thinking, and I know you don't have it ready to make a decision, but it comes out to like $120 a unit increase, if I got your numbers right and understand it, over what we budgeted for, what we got involved in these apartments with, and our fixed costs and all of that, because you have to look at it and see if it's viable and how much you're gonna charge for rent. And so in the past, we're doing it. We're making it, even though we have a pretty high vacancy rate, we're probably running 50%. But we're probably gonna have to do some advertising, do a lot of word of mouth, which has been a lot of safe people, because, if you've ever done rentals, you gotta be careful. Yeah, you inherit something you don't want, it's like a bad marriage. So, I was looking at that, I was thinking something like, maybe we could meet it halfway at $60 a unit on the units that are, increase on the units that are rented, and then as we rent them, there's people here that know what's going on in our apartments, and just be on a handshake kind of a deal, and then just hit us for that for as long as those units are rented for that extra $60, and I think we could probably do that.
So one of my goals has been to get away from handshake deals.
Yeah.
To
Oh,
be
that's why
frank
you're
with you, it should be black and white, cut and dry.
Yeah,
You get a piece of paper if you own or rent or whatever it is.
Sure,
This is
something
what
like
it costs.
Yeah, I'm just saying it'd be in good faith that we would be reporting exactly what, the small town, there's no secrets as far as who's.
No,
in
and I
those
think
places.
that's something that I've tried to tackle a little bit, and I would like to continue. Unfortunately, I don't know that I'll be able to get it done while I'm here. It's just something that was a pet peeve of mine as utility.
No,
It should be cut and dry. There should be no gray area. And frankly, we have a lot of it still.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Well, I
gray area.
We just hate to see these apartments go empty again, or go get rented to somebody who doesn't, somehow gets turned around, and you got the sheriff here every day or every week.
Sure.
That's to understand what was going on, man, drug problems, all kinds of things.
says the guy who lives next door to it, right?
Next door to it, yeah. That's true. And, what was I gonna say? Something else about that.
Well, I appreciate it,
Senior
and
moment, yeah.
I mean, as we go forward this year, while I'm still here, definitely we'll keep in touch and
That would be great, we appreciate it.
work with you
I think-
guys to see
Yeah,
what we
because I
can do.
understand it's gonna go into effect, this new rates, the first of the year, is that for
Well,
sure?
we haven't changed any rates,
Okay.
so there's as of right now, there's nothing. What it
Well,
is.
we didn't change rates, but I think what it's affecting them is the inactive, when we got rid of the inactive rate, that's probably what brought this about.
Mm.
That those apartments are no longer applicable to an inactive rate.
Yeah, they should have.
My initial thought on it is a house is one residential unit. And a house has a set price that we're charging for that. An apartment is a residential unit. And there's 8 of them combined. So in essence, that's 8 individual units that all have to be charged water and sewer because they all use it at a different rate.
I would
But-
agree that that's probably what we did. I don't know that we were thinking of the apartments necessarily one way or another when we did that, but
But that's why there's an ERU
Right.
to get the equivalent of maybe, and I don't know the number, but
Yeah.
4 bedrooms and 4 studios is equivalent to 3 SFR,
resident, yeah.
3 resident, 3 ERUs.
So, Just thank you for taking in some information from us, and just encourage you to think about it, and if you have any more questions, to get a hold of us, because we're interested in continuing on having apartments available, and they're renovated, they're in great shape, and we just need more people to come and participate with us. So
Yeah.
thank you for considering us.
Yep, thank you guys.
What he said, and we've helped people out, you know, that are on the verge of homelessness.
Right.
You know, and they're there, and we've gone with, you know, taking less rent. One individual, Steve, you know who that was, that just passed away. She didn't have, you know, she didn't pay rent for over
3
a year.
years.
Was it 3 years?
3 years.
Because she couldn't.
And she
So we're-
paid,
so
she
we're still
basically
serving.
paid it forward, serving county residents in drug and alcohol and family housing and things like that. So anyway,
We're
that's
just not in it for profits, what I'm saying. We're
Sure.
trying to serve the community.
Yeah,
Right.
but again, thank you very much.
I want to
Appreciate it.
thank you guys for coming to the meeting, and we
Yeah.
appreciate the participation here.
Yep.
And
Yeah. And
hope you come
thank-
back.
Yeah, and thank
You know,
you
if you
for
turn the heat up.
serving well. So,
Not maybe under different circumstances,
Yeah.
but we
Yes.
do like the citizens'
yeah, that's good. So thank you.
participation.
Thank
Do you
very
gentlemen have a proposed rate schedule? Or was your purpose of your appearance just to initiate discussion on the matter?
Right there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you guys,
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you very
Thanks for
much.
coming.
Have a good rest of the evening.
You're up if you have
I
anything.
have a question.
Sure.
Is the city of Harrington considered by the IRS to be a nonprofit organization, or not nonprofit, tax exempt?
No.
As far as,
The endowment?
yeah, as far as the income that comes in from, as interest and dividends on the endowment money, is there tax owed on that, or is that totally tax-free?
It should be tax-free.
I do
I've never
not know
seen,
that.
in my experience, I've never seen a tax bill for that. The only, we get taxed on our utilities, but that's by the state, but I'm not aware of any.
Well, that question came to mind after the last meeting that we were at, because as a private citizen, I have to deal with some investments that the income is taxable and some is not, but if you're a 501c something classification under IRS rules, then you're exempt from paying the income tax, you're a tax exempt organization.
Yeah, that'd be a good question for the treasurer.
Yeah,
But I mean, as the mayor, I don't remember signing any checks to the IRS
not
For-
on the investment
for
money.
that
Okay.
purpose.
I would guess that probably you are tax exempt as a municipality. Because if you were to issue bonds and I invested in the bonds, I wouldn't have to pay tax on that income. But bonds from a private corporation, I have to pay tax on those.
And we're still looking for that statement of principles that you had mentioned in the last meeting.
Yes, I've had emails from Jess and he said he was looking for it.
And you don't have any further information?
We do not have anything further to offer at this point, no.
Okay, I'm glad you come down tonight again. 'cause-
Janice is still digging through her dad's boxes. She's had them in her basement for 5 or 6 years since he passed away, and she has had a hard time getting to it. This is good motivation for her.
All right,
Well, thank you.
Question, if we can't find a statement of principle, is that something that we should initiate, in your opinion? Should we create one?
yes.
I don't know that I'm qualified at this point to have an opinion on that. It would seem like if we're not able to find it, or if possibly one never existed, that it would be up to whatever committee was appointed to advise on that particular issue, the endowment fund issue. Would probably want to sit down and maybe put together a statement of principles that regulates how it's managed.
I'd like to add to that, I was advised by a financial advisor that that statement of principles or the outlining of it, you need that or you could lose your IRS status and have to pay taxes.
Well, for what it's worth,
So
I
it
walked
is-
in on Jess last week and he had stacked papers and notes all over the place. He's he's digging hard, so.
But, if I understand it right, Robert Luke, was he the attorney on that? The draft, or did he have anything to do with it, or was it,
On the forming of the
Forming.
endowment fund?
did he have anything, yes?
What was the name?
Bob Luke?
No, I don't know. I don't know who was the attorney that Bob Hop contacted to do, I don't